What they say is at that time of the Tower of Babel, the Lord changes their language because that's his big problem. He says anything their minds can imagine themselves to have now cannot be kept from them. What would he care what we have? He gave us this whole country, the whole world to have. And so what they had found out, there was too much progression. So to stop the progression of understanding and knowledge, he separates all the people, sticks all the crap up between them. So it took a long time to get back together. However, the Book of Mormon says one group of people did not have their language confounded, which ain't no best. You understand that your technology is your language. If you can make a radio and somebody else can make a buggy, you got to be able to communicate the thoughts for anything to develop and grow better. And so technology is really your language. And by confusing the languages, it lost all that technology.
Welcome to the June 24th edition of The Electric View. I'm Neil Thompson. Today we have David, Robert, Jim, and Buddy. We are discussing what the nature of language and technology are, their relation to historical revisionism, and what we know about our planet. Please take a moment to like and subscribe.
If there was a group that did not have their language confounded, they would still have the old day technology. And it is said that they were then sent around the earth to talk to all those people that had been separated and just put out of holes like the Aztecs say, and they didn't know nothing. And so the Cheyenne say that they were visited by star people that landed there and told them how to build the teepees in a object to the lunar positioning and how the moon was and how to use everything for the buffalo, and the people in the other areas were showed how to make the crocodile their god. So they taught them everything they needed to go in their area to live, but they didn't give them a lot of technology. Although the old Indians, the Cheyenne, say those original people gave them 12 shiny metal shields that could raise anybody almost from the dead, and that transferred into the leather ones. And so all the indigenous societies say that there were people that came from the sky, either the stars at night or from the sky in the day. And they landed and taught them shit, and then they left. And so they were the star people. So I don't think they were Klingons or Kardashians. They could have been a group of people that did have the knowledge and were instructed by whoever is that great architect that does this shit, it puts it out there. I think they were set apart to do that. And if you think about it, your technology is your language. Like the Canadians know an awful lot about technology, and so do we in America. But you can't hardly understand them, right? Yeah, whatever their accents.
It's terrible.
It's not. You bet.
What's that about?
What's
you
that
bet.
about?
That's you.
What you talking
Utah
about?
What's that?
Right.
Anyways,
that's beautiful.
Understand some of those people. Anyways, that's what I just as a thought. And here's the final. Where it says in the scriptures that light is the Christ of the earth, the light of the world, everything, light is Christ, Christ is life, everything has to do with light. And so Joseph Smith made this proclamation one day, and he said, that light that giveth us our light, which is the sun, that light that giveth us our light is the same light that quickeneth our understanding. Now, when you quicken your understanding, you get knowledge. And so the idea is all knowledge is like a real particle. Gamma ray, we don't know what they were a couple years ago. X-rays, we didn't know. So intelligence actually comes through the sun. And every DNA substance is made up of the same four elements. And so from the largest of life is us. Everything degenerates from that, but it's the same four marbles. And so if you're a pine tree and you're in an area where you need something, you can get that knowledge from sunlight for your DNA of your pine tree. And if you're a chicken, same thing. So every life form is able to get the knowledge it needs through the let's say it's like an Akashic record. It is there. It is this there. And so if a man hears something and says it, that projects that thought. That might go to the cloud or the Google Akashic record, but it was there before. And so therefore knowledge is what has been protected and kept secret all the time for history. To know something was power and energy. So when Da Vinci came out with the helicopter and the submarine and the underwater walking devices, he didn't start an underwater touring service or a helicopter flying agency because they were owned by the Pope. He was commissioned by somebody. So none of your thoughts or none of the stuff was your own. And if you don't have the opportunity to think and develop that, you lose that opportunity. You don't get it no more. They're saying now in schools, because we don't learn 1, 2, buckle my shoe, 3, 4, shut the door, and moat, when we don't learn memory things like poems and stories, when you're young, you don't build the channels in your mind that are caused electrically like the Grand Canyon. And so they actually create pathways in your brain. And if you don't have that from repetition, you can't do cognitive thinking. And so all that shit is all tied together. We are electrical. We are that. But I still don't know where the hell the Aztec head came from. But thank you for consideration.
Great. Yeah. Excellent. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, and have a good day. David, I haven't talked to you for a long time.
I know. We should do that. Yeah, absolutely.
I tried your cell phone, and I guess you threw it against the wall.
Oh, no, I have another. That phone had to go, so I've got a new phone.
That the fellow there, I can't see the letter, JW, invited me onto this call today, and I was just able to catch it before I lost it and get on. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
It's great.
Oh, great, yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
As it said now, as it be said now, eyes open and be safe.
Well, you too.
Yeah. No fear.
No fear. That's what I mean. Eyes open, no fear. Take it easy, gentlemen. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. Bye.
I prefer be excellent to each other and party on, dude. But yeah, we're in the same ballpark there.
Be excellent to each other. So
it's interesting. He mentioned what he mentioned those links. You see, there's this. I mean, once you hear about the flamenco ideas, and then you hear about the restructuring history and the idea that, I mean, I like the fact that it goes, they were almost back up to the point they were before the original destruction occurred, which was interesting because that means that they knew about that. The antediluvian flood, I assume, or in my world, maybe the Saturn-Turnian idea. But then there's that New Earth girl had this whole thing where she was showing old pictures that showed here's a painting from the 1700s where you can see the Muslims and the Jews side by side with the Christians all in one town type of thing, and they had this weird stuff sticking out of the tops of the buildings, like steampunk devices, with their wires and antenna and stuff like that in the 1700s. It's very weird. And you're, of course, then you get into discussion about, Roman buildings in Tokyo and all this other kind of stuff. And you're wondering what is really true about history. Because when you get down to it, you have such really strong, you have some big questions, some big holes there. And you keep wondering if this, the knowledge, quote unquote, that was, that he's referring to, that the technology, they were almost up to basically where they were before, maybe, using batteries or something like that. I mean, our rebirth of electricity is certainly at least the second junction of that technology, but it was certainly different way back when. It seems.
Right.
It seems. Right. I mean, pyramids alone, but also, just some of the stories that they were telling from in a Velikovskian type of way. Cataclysms, as you would say, yeah. Wondering, Because I mean, some of this stuff is obviously clearly, has an electrical component to it, and wondering what that, and of course now we should actually be looking at these rivers of lava coming. I mean, Hawaii is going crazy.
Amazing, yeah.
And of course we're at conjunction with Mars, aren't we? Or anti-junction? I can't.
This whole thing, yeah. Heather can't make it today. She mentioned that, so unfortunately. Oh, we got the sign language guy up at the top here.
That's going to help.
So, okay. You can read that right now.
Yeah. It's called American Sign Language, not Canadian Sign Language. Okay?
Right.
Jeez, guys, come on.
Look at this. Holy cow, man.
It's also
awesome.
a weird... I mean, that's like... I think some of the stuff that we say, like, for example... I mean, we can't ignore the fact that this type of stuff must have been happening when other cataclysms were occurring around the world.
Right.
But
right. What's your read, Jim, on what's going on in Hawaii these days? Still there, Jim?
Yeah. On what?
Hawaii.
On the Hawaiian activity. You have any insight or predictions, perhaps, on what the next step?
No. I've been watching it every day, keeping track of the stuff and seeing if it's spooling up or down, and it's not doing either, and I'm confused.
We were looking
like for a month straight, like a
5.2
to 5.4 earthquake, almost like clockwork too, like for days in a row, it'll be within a few minutes of the same time of the day, and I still don't get that pattern. But
I think we should probably, in my world, I guess, I would like to eventually, in the electric universe model, figure out Hawaii and figure out the difference between shield volcanoes and obviously, we'll say conventional volcanoes. Because there's definitely a big difference. I mean, the amount of ash that's spewed out of one versus the other. What is ash? I love the fact that we can basically say that ash is like rock that has been completely ripped to little tiny atoms and then flung out of the top of these things. Like wondering the difference is that one seems to have a certain thing. This one has this one just spews out lava. Like literal lava, like very runny, snot-like lava comparatively.
Isn't this amazing? Here's the big island, right? But look at this line here.
Well, it tells me that's the direction the Earth is expanding.
Isn't that pretty significant? And then just to be like the crazy geometer character aspiring I am, right? This is like 108 degrees, right?
120.
Seems. Nah, so that, well,
180 straight.
From looking at Pentagons enough, it's like, but anyway, so this thing I ran across today that I hadn't seen before, and let me see if I can dig it up here.
Don't go back. Don't.
Yeah. Oh,
wonderful. See, if you think about the expanding Earth, the Hawaii bubble or whatever was up there near. North of, like, at the top of where Russia connects there, that whatever that is,
Sphere?
Right there, yeah. And the bubble, and the Earth expanded from that point, and that point is still in the same spot. And the Earth is moving around it. Right? It seems if I was a betting man, I mean, just. But
there's clearly some action, right? Would you have to say?
Well, yes. There's definitely a connection
here.
I mean, look at the fact that where it is at. I mean, this island or these islands are a conduit for everything within 2,000 miles. I mean, nothing is there except for a few things that are sticking up out of the water. So this is like a place to deal with all that charge. It has to process these electrons that are trying to get through that water, and it can't. So it goes to the nearest high point there, and that's where it makes its connection. I wondered if, and it's just very amazing the way that it's almost like you could see the expansion of the Earth if that stayed in the same spot. But anyway, show me what you're going to show.
Right. This is it basically. But and you've probably seen this with a boat if you're in a boat, right?
Of course.
And then you have the wake behind you.
I've water skied many times.
But it's consistently this. It's consistently 19.5.
Yeah.
Right? And
well, unless you go real slow.
No, okay. I mean, you could, depending on, it's really not dependent on the medium. And I have to do a little bit more research,
because I would automatically assume that the permittivity and permeability
you would think so, and I need to dive into it because I just ran into it this morning, and I find it really fascinating because of the occurrence of this number, and this is the tetrahedral angle, right? And then you get back to this thing that we were just looking at, and we know our relationships perhaps between anyway. There's some very interesting fundamental geometry happening.
No, so. I'd be interested because that's fluid dynamics, obviously, and it must relate. Speaking of which, it must relate to
why is that? I mean, it's the tetrahedral angle. I mean, we've run across this one. You saw the one with the. Let's see where I put this one, but the spot on Jupiter, and you said it's always a tetrahedral angle. It's like, why is it that angle? And why? And by the way, Hawaii is at the tetrahedral angle. By the way. So anyway,
in what sense?
It's a fun fact from the equator.
Oh, it's 19.5 degrees up. No, it looks higher than that. It looks like it's 30.
No.
Well, I can't really tell.
Yeah.
I need to like longs of latitude and longitude to figure it out. But
right.
I mean, I thought that it was just around the same height as. I love those lines. I'm going to stop myself just there. Look at those beautiful lines. Did you zoom in on those? Those are just dots, little craters that going across the earth. It's
not
the big
marks.
ones, the small ones, the ones that are crisscrossing it.
Oh, these going this way?
Yeah, just like that.
Yeah.
These are, in my opinion, they're footprints of planets that have passed by the Earth.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Well, no, because if you zoom in, they're just little pit marks. See, using the Townsend discharge, you have to get to the ocean floor to do your discharge, so you are doing the little tiny points. Yeah, but you zoom in on those, they're just little tiny craters. It's just weird.
A cross hatch.
Yep.
Well, it's even interesting if you just look at the Hawaiian Island chains. You know that there's at volcanoes there's electric discharges, and supposedly that lightning goes up to space. But what it looks like is almost a discharge path across there, where it's the most recent discharge is in the Hawaiian Islands, but it could have been like an arcing across that whole chain, where just now the Hawaiian Islands are the current leading edge of that discharge path, really.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Could be.
Right, but here's the point of departure, right? I mean, where the action is. It would be very interesting to see if there was a way of like monitoring any type of current that went directly from that point into the stratosphere / ionosphere / all the way out.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think that would be observed, but I haven't seen anything on that.
Well, the reason that I kind of like those lines is because when you have just the little dot ones, and what I think they represent is when something. See, we can see the quote-unquote expansion cracks and those type of things, and I could understand what I'm looking at there, but some of the stuff is like when you move material across this, like just hitting, it's going to go across, because this is basically 5 miles of water insulation, right? or depending how many, it's deep. See, it's going across it, and it can only make little connections as it goes across, because most of the time it has to burrow through all that water to make the connection. But once it gets close to the land, you'll see that they sort of almost disappear, and they immediately jump to the land. Like there's none. Doesn't look like there's any right near the Hawaiian Islands. They jump to the islands when they get close enough to it. Same with the land. They stop like a couple hundred miles away from the land. But because that's where the electricity would jump from and then hit the land. You get my meaning?
Mm-hmm.
That's some of the reasons why I think that's what we're looking at. But I could be wrong. I'm just trying to interpret the data as I see it.
Yeah.
Because if it's looking at the water, it's just a flat surface, and it has to electricity will not jump left and right until it sees something to connect to. Some of them look like they've actually made it through, because I could just see a little, like one line that made it down there, you see. But they all stop just short of the land, it looks like. See, that one seemed to make it through, but the rest, they stop outside of the land. They just sort of jump to it. That's just an opinion, though, of course. What do I know? Although you can see parts of the land slough off, like there's some debris that they found that's like one's the size of Manhattan Island, I think, off the coast, and that's the one that made that giant wave we were talking about last.
Oh, okay.
It's they found like it was basically, there it is, just north of Honolulu. See those? There's a debris field, and you zoom in on that, and you see one of those chunks. That chunk there, the biggest chunk, is about the size of. That's about the size of Manhattan or more, and apparently it's sloughed off, and it would have rolled down off of the place that says Kailua, I guess, or whatever, and then fell off, and then just got that far out. Apparently, when it fell, because that's 5 miles, right? But it was underwater, and it must have been going so fast. But the water it displaced created that earthquake, they say, or that thing.
It reminds me of a blast pattern,
Almost, yeah.
Right, and it
did fall 5 miles, and we got to understand the way that things work in an avalanche, the way that things are separated. It's very interesting, more interesting than I thought it was. Just studying landslides. Like how do you have so much speed? Why does it keep going? Why does it act like a fluid? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I obviously don't know all this stuff, but I think it's just amazing.
Yeah, this is the beauty of being able to kind of explore it, like much more up close and personal than 20 years ago, for sure.
Oh yeah, we could only imagine this stuff. Now seeing these lines all over the world, and of course with no explanation of why they're there. You can say, oh, it's just the ocean sliding, plate tectonics, and then of course now we're at the idea that we're seeing that that's probably not true, and we're into probably an idea of a expanding Earth, which blows my mind. But then what are these other lines? This is
so where it's like the general indication is anything that's like kind of because we brought up with these things. There were two really strong ones, as I remember as a kid, like 5th grade, 6th grade. It's like erosion caused everything, and then plate tectonics, and it's like they're stated as fact, and it's like the second something's
even in their names.
Whenever anything's declarative like that, it's like the red flag goes off, right? It's like, to me now at this point, I knee jerk on them. It's like that declarative is the indicator.
We've seen this before. Like they have to come up with, like there's always uplift. There's always words like this instead of. Basically, geology was a descriptive science only, like volcanology. Volcanology is a descriptive science because no one's built a correctly functioning volcano. Like we just haven't done it. No one has showed how it works. And we're only masking our ignorance by saying
third and fourth graders that have tried really hard.
I did. I remember when I was in third or fourth grade
too.
with Shannon Noble, by the way.
Was that okay? All right.
But
so you had divine help there.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's the nature of. I mean, they just conceal it by saying that the
it seems
Earth
like
is
it's
really
clearly
hot.
it's an electrical. It seems clearly to me that there's an electrical component to them.
Well, they have this. They gave us this mental idea that the Earth is infinitely hot on the inside, and that it is. There's a molten thing that we're just floating on,
right?
Like there's just a ball of liquid.
Right.
But
it's kind of like the model of like you don't want to go to hell, right? Because and it's the center of the earth is the Dante's Inferno.
But there's no reason for any of that. I mean, if you look at hollow earth seismology, you know that there's much better ways of explaining the earthquake lines, the shadow zone, all of this than the conventional model. And they're having such a hard time. And the only reason we need this model is to defend the fact that the Earth has to be this much mass to equate for its orbit, which is why we determine that there's iron in the center of it. And then, of course, this is how we determine that the sun is made of hydrogen, the gas giants are gas, and comets are made of snow. And we're learning that all of this is stupid and wrong. I mean, the Juno mission alone, I mean, if they couldn't take no for an answer from the cometary mission when they tried to drill into it and we're like, this ice is as hard as rock. It also looks like rock.
It's a very interesting dynamic because it's like this is where kind of the model, the defense of what
it's falling apart clearly.
It seems like, but why would they let it fall apart like this? Because it seems, it's
because people are actually real scientists intermingled with the priesthood, and they're doing stuff that, and some of them think that they're doing the right thing. Obviously, I mean, they're trying to prove a theory, and they think this theory is right, but they don't realize that they've been bullshitted so long ago that this is Sheldrake's argument, that they don't even realize that they've moved. They're no longer stating their assumptions, and they have moved on to La La Land almost, like you're no longer like they obfuscate the speed of light because by making it because it's a constant. Who said it's a constant? The universal law of gravitation. Who said it was universal?
Once again, those are the declaratives.
Yeah, and it's and they just do this, and they formed a priesthood to sell the story that everything's going to be fine.
Look how brittle suddenly,
Well, because our amount of data is hitting to the point where it's no longer. I mean, you can cover it over with the fact that the Earth. I mean, if you go back to the original Star Trek, okay, and look at what they put on the screen as a picture of the Earth. Let's say when they were flying that Gary guy to the jet airplane one, and his. And they went the Enterprise went back in time, right? And they had to sneak on the Air Force Base. Well, if you look at the original, not the new one from 2009, because they redid the graphics, but the original, the picture of the Earth was just a map. Like you could see that it was clearly like the Earth was like the water was just a pale blue all around the world, and the ground was just brown. With some green splotches, and you could basically cover up a lot of things if this is your version of the Earth. Now look at our version of the Earth. You can cover up a lot of things and say they're canals on Mars until finally you go look at Mars. Now you can look at Mars with the Hubble Space Telescope and go, nope, not like that at all. And stuff like that. Jupiter the same way. Now we sent Juno mission. They go, oh yeah, the magnetic field of Jupiter works like this because we've done experiments on computers. They send this probe there and they go, it's not like that at all. Oh, really? Like they're surprised every turn. I mean, remember the Viking landers? That's my favorite one. Just in the 1960s, they said 60s. So this is 60s, or maybe. Like they were wondering what they were going to find there. A paradise beneath the clouds. Trees growing up. And it's going to be beautiful. It's just like Earth. It's in the Goldilocks zone. It has all this. Everything's going to be perfect. It is literal hell. It is literally as hot as hell. 900 degrees Fahrenheit. That's how hot. Lead is molten on that planet. we think, and they got there and they were like, oh, I guess we're wrong. That your theory is completely fucking bogus. And then, of course, here comes Carl Sagan going, well, it's a runaway greenhouse effect since the Venus is as old as the Earth.
Oh, man.
No, but because Venus is as old as the Earth was another unstated assumption. And they do this over and over and over again.
I watched when remember it was the early war that when they went into Kuwait. It was like the 90s. I remember
Operation Desert Storm.
Yeah, they remember because the evil who I guess it was the Iraqis, right? This was like this that they were priming.
We watched this live on TV. I think everyone took the day off school. But they lost. But this is where I discredit Sagan to because I watched him on TV saying this, right? But they lit these the refineries and the oil wells. They just whoever sparked them, right? And I question the culprit here these days, of course. I don't know.
But it was the Iraqis, and then he goes on national television, and it's like, it's very likely that this is going to fill the skies with black soot, and the entire world will be engulfed in black soot from this act of terrorism.
Are you out of your mind?
What are you talking about? And
Have you seen Mount St. Helens?
I remember saying, no way, and it's like, but he was saying it. And it's like, who the hell are you saying this kind of stuff and to maintain any type of integrity?
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, the natural disasters that we have suffered through, like I said, Mount St. Helens was a small one, but, the Tunguska blast, we have seen much more debris thrown up in the sky compared to that. Krakatoa.
Yeah,
Krakatoa blew an entire island to pieces, and threw it to the sky. And you're trying to tell me that this is going to do anything? Although admittedly it was. Did you ever see how they put those out? How they turned off the flames?
Oh, no.
TNT.
I mean, I have some idea. Oh yeah, okay. They blow it up.
No. They took a charge, so they get a guy out there, and they on a crane. They take a TNT charge that's well insulated, and they put it up beside the pipe. Okay, and what they literally do is, because it's unlike the movies where it's flame explosions are like balls of flame. Like that's not how it works in real life. It's a detonation. So they detonated this, and it was just like blowing out a candle. And the flame was blown away off of the oil, and all that was left was the oil spewing out, and they just walked up and turned it off.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, brilliant work, boys.
There you go.
Brilliant work.
Yeah, right.
That's this is smart stuff, and this is science, But it's amazing how much they feed us bullshit and expect us now to believe it. And some of it, and I don't mean conspiratorial wise, but I mean obviously, when you start getting into the big questions, cosmology, ancient history, human origins, I guess, the theories are more important than the facts, and that's not... Well, and this is where, I mean, astronomy or astrophysics is just one of the first ones. Geology is obviously going to take a huge hit, and once those two are done, history is going to have to be changed along with psychology and a whole whack of other things. It's just Krakatoa east of Java.
East of Java. Yeah, it's great.
If you get a chance, there's a BBC documentary or docudrama that is really good on Krakatoa. They even have like they tell stories, like real stories about people who were involved. One of them was like a boat of refugees. They were there when they heard, like, they were all completely deafened for a long time. Like all their eardrums blew when the crack went off. Like, I mean, the crack. That's what it sounded like. They said it was like the most powerful electric spark zap that you've ever seen.
This one went worldwide, right?
What is this?
This is the documentary. I think it might be the BBC one, but it's great, right? I mean, I don't know where they're getting this footage, but
well, yeah. Well, I was gonna say, is that actual footage of, like,
great?
Because
I don't think so.
pyroclastic flows are dangerous shit. You know. Like,
yeah.
I mean, but I mean,
they
they killed so many people just from the pyroclastic flow that, and they were miles away. They were 30 miles away from the island. Here comes the bullshit. Sorry.
Yeah. As far as how they,
they make, like, how do we know this?
Yeah. See, right, exactly.
It's like with subduction. That's another thing. This whole idea of what subduction is that even happening? You know, why the middle of land masses up higher than the coast? It makes more sense that they were buckling. You know, like from this from the pressure of being pushed outwards, if you know what I mean, like on an eggshell, or an orange that just kept getting bigger and cracking open. You know.
Right.
Just because, I mean, it's very high up in the middle of almost all the continents. 8 miles in one, Denver, Mile High City in the other, you know, type of thing. That makes you wonder what's going on here. What are we really looking at? Don't get me wrong, it's lovely. I mean, I'm willing to accept anything, but as long as it fits the facts.
Well, it's always good to question. I mean, you're always going to learn more. You can get in trouble for it because you end up being a heretic. You know, but it's like what
all my best friends, all my heroes are heretics.
Yes,
or on the FBI watch list.
Yeah.
You know, but it's true. I mean, Eric Blaithwaite turned out to be a heretic because he was a big into the gyroscopic nature of electricity, and because he designed a lot of stuff, and then he started talking about gyroscopes and pointing out some of the weird things, like how to change mass of a gyroscope. And he was declared a heretic for that, and they fired him and everything else. Someone was on a thing, and it goes, why does Robitaille, Dr. Robitaille, only talk about the liquid metal hydrogen theory and not talk about how gravity could be changed as opposed on Wal Thornhill's model? By the way, I was talking to Ito, and I came up with an answer for gravity that would make the Thornhill-Sansbury gravity model the Thornhill-Sansbury-Edwin Thompson gravity model.
Oh, man, really?
Like, cool. Seriously, because I started cluing into something because of what Wall had said, and I began to realize that this is much easier explained. Gravity is much more easily explained in Edwin's model.
I'm interested
because you can make a dipole in the middle of the nucleus because of the positive and negative charges inside of it. But those charges cannot move like they do in a balloon. Like if you rub your hair with a balloon and it sticks to a wall, that's the electrostatic things. And basically, you created a connection between these 2 points, and you're basically, freeing electrons or ions or whatever, right? And you're basically able to change the charge of this slightly. Well, in Edwin's model, in the Sansbury-Wall model, they were talking about subtrons, or this fictional idea inside of an atom. But all that can be discarded now, and the dipole does not have to be made on the subatomic quark level. It can be made on just the nucleus, just with the protons and neutrons, or the protons and electrons inside the nucleus, which cannot transfer to the shell. And since they cannot transfer to the shell, they are basically creating a little dipole inside of the nucleus, and therefore that could be why gravity occurs. Because in the presence of an electric field, you would have mass. I thought it was brilliant, but
yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, well, this is a whole.
I wrote him an email on it.
This type of idea. Yeah, this type of idea is bubbling.
Him and James
and
I accidentally
from multiple
Andy.
Directions. By the way, it's the same type of idea.
Yeah. Can I add one thing to that? That's interesting because that's the scale at which Wall's dipole model does work. It doesn't work on the planetary scale, but it does work on the nuclear scale. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I mean, the idea of electrically modified gravity is it's becoming. I mean, the comet does that. But anyway, what I was saying is Robitaille. I said, someone goes, why does Robitaille not go into that model? I go, well, I understand. I mean, you can't it being a doctor and then saying that gravity can be modified without a single paper to prove it. He does Sky Scholar, by the way. If you you can just type in Sky Scholar, you'll find him. Anyway, he's absolutely amazing. And I said I understood that, and then someone said, well, since what he did with the MRI imaging and all his work there, I don't think he has to worry about anything like that. And I said, really? You say that, but Galileo was imprisoned. Arp was fired. Velikovsky's life was threatened. Let's see. Eric Lathwaite was fired. Sheldrake was threatened and stabbed. And
I didn't know that story.
Kristen Birkeland committed suicide, and I just basically went through a list of things. I said, you say you're not threatened. You say that, but the powers that be are incredibly powerful if they don't want you to say something. And he's not like Robitaille's not a crazy guy in any way. I mean, he's but to go to make that statement, like, for example, we just talked about that thing about, well, see, here's my problem with the subtron model that Sansbury put out. Wall tried to turn it into the quark version, and here I am basically saying, well, if Edwin's model is correct, it could happen right there with actual positive and negative charges. It doesn't require subtron.
He's still going for this the model of condensation of matter, right?
Who?
Ito. From the sun. I mean, that's what he was kind of discussing.
Oh no, we're I've been like, yeah, there's some merit to some of the ideas on what's going on. Like, is there nuclear reactions going on inside the sun and the Earth that are creating some of this stuff? Creating all this heat, because there's endothermic reactions that are occurring nuclearly, and before iron would be the one that happens before it turns into endothermic, which requires more power and therefore would start making things colder. It's very interesting, and of course his model really does nicely dovetail with the idea of maturing stars, but at the same time does not contradict what we generally would assume with just balls and plasma, which is the Dr. Donald Scott's model, with his idea that no, you just turn the electricity up or down. You can start changing the parameters of the star. Like start playing with it basically. How much, and this is. Yeah, here's the history of the sun. He's talking about the gas interior and all this, because basically the reason it has to be gas is because of the laws of Newton. The universal law of gravitation is the only reason why we think that the sun is made of hydrogen. That's it. There's no other reason. There's no evidence to support that with our own lying eyes, and our own lying eyes are telling us it has a friggin' surface. But if you do the math says this sun has this much mass. You do the size versus the density, or size versus the area, or whatever volume, and you end up with density, and the density says hydrogen. That's it. The Earth has to have a metal core because when we do the math, it says it has a metal core. That's it. If we, like, for example, here, can you pause that for a sec? Just for, and go to your Google and type in hollow planet seismology. It'll be the first link. And this guy wrote a paper, and this is something that I sent to Wall, and Wall used it in one of his papers there, but yeah, right there. And this is where, you understand, he just said the Earth is not a ball of molten lava, and why. Lava comes from something no deeper than 20 miles down, for example. The shadow zone, they don't understand how this happens. This is why the hollow Earth fails the original seismology test, but where does it start making sense? And you go down further and you begin to see that it's like why is the shadow zone there? 'Cause see, they don't even know in the figuring modern textbooks how this even happens. But that works perfectly. Basically, instead of getting more dense, as it says in the gravity model it should, it gets less dense, and there is a hole in the middle of the planet, basically. And this is where people like me would be going, that's a positive surface. It would be repelling in all directions. Because and not just it would have as positive a surface as the Earth has a negative surface. You know what I mean? It would be the opposite of what the Earth's surface is. And then you start seeing the earthquake data showing that where it's supposed to be completely molten, we get earthquakes down to 1,500 kilometers. You know, this is ludicrous. We're seeing that what's going on inside the Earth is not what we've been told, and it's very simple stuff. It doesn't take a remotely genius to figure it out, and this is why the stuff that hits the far side of the planet takes longer to get to this place of the stuff that hits the sides of the planet. But they think that something weird is happening in the middle because the elasticity must change because the speed changed. You see what I mean? So they're using these mathematical numbers and basing it on an assumption on what the inside of our planet's like. And this is where this supposition or assumption after assumption, unstated, ends up turning everything into ridiculousness. I mean,
well, you end up, that ends
we
up
have
being
gas giants.
It ends up being a resonant cavity. Just like they saw on the moon, right? When they did.
Well, yeah, but it's surrounded by liquid, it seems, or something less dense.
Right.
Less dense than the solid stuff above it. But when you think about it, trying to crush, if you were trying to crush the middle of a planet, you couldn't do it. The outside of the planet the harder you squeeze on the outside of this ball, especially with a ball that thick of a surface, 1,500 kilometers. But if you try to push on that, you're not going to be able to deform it or create pressure because it's creating an arch. The arch is anybody who studies architecture knows that arches don't fail because of the way that they're made. The harder you push on them, the more they stay together. They solidify. They created a dome, an arch that prevents failure. And this is what I would think that the Earth would be like, basically.
What's interesting in those graphs there is that's one where the mainstream geologists don't know their mainstream physics, and and what they're graphing is totally backwards by that. We already talked about that, right? How the curve is backwards. That what happens, what the geologists say there is, see the way the sound waves are deflected upwards?
Yeah, that's because they're getting more dense, they say.
Right, and it's the other way.
It's the other way.
Because
this right here?
Waves are always curved away from, they have the dynamic backwards. A physicist will tell you, not a geophysicist, but a mainstream physicist will tell you.
Dr. Ed Dowdy, for example.
Right. Well,
he says refraction. That's why I thought it was funny.
Yeah, but it should be bent towards the greater density. So what that would tell you, like in that figure that we're looking at right now, A, the fact that there's that upward bending means it's more dense at the surface than below. And then what we would have to have is another circle of density, which then also decreases in density between where E is, for example. That's bent up. So what you would see, ironically, is what the same picture that Edmund Halley had worked out years ago, is that he said there was concentric shells and a solid core with concentric shells. That's what Earth was, and that's what all these other structures were. But that's what you see in that picture. It's
well, yeah, and in case you don't know, Dave, and I don't know if Dave or Buddy or anyone's looking, the earthquake originated down by where D is, like over in that direction. That's where the earthquake originated, and and the waves are pressure waves going through, and of course you're right, the density is changing, and then it gets to the outer core, and of course the refraction says it should bend that way. But if you scroll down a bit more, you'll see no, further than that one, keep going, that one. So if you look at put them both on the screen there, those two, figure 311 and the one below it. Now the problem is, of course, is you can see the curve, you can see the shadow zone, and they don't know how that happens. But you'd see exactly how that happens if you change from high density to low density. You see how the waves are moving differently now. They're curving inwards around the cavity, and that is, and this, because they think that, of course, that white dot in the middle is a solid ball, and they thought that they go right through that. But of course, like we said, the elasticity must change because they get slower when they get to the other side of the planet, and because they don't reach in the right times. And these are all things that we found only, I'd say, in the last maybe, really going into this in the last maybe 30 or 40 years. And they simply don't want to rewrite the textbooks or something. And that's, and of course, this is where everything starts falling into place. What is going on with, I mean, if we don't understand this, we're not going to understand. We can't even understand our own fucking planet, basically, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And we think that we could understand a star, and we're going to get it right. Well,
this is where the immense arrogance of the whole thing, and ultimately just shuts down inquiry.
Yeah, and now, of course, we have black holes, wormholes, and everything else. We have scientists that are talking about wormholes like they're real. Like, until you build one in a fucking lab, shut the fuck up, please. Like, I mean, that's just my, it's my thing. We're sitting there trying to prove, we're trying to prove black holes, but here you are using electromagnetic waves.
Or if you have an interesting theory, please share, and we're interested. But it's like, the proof is in the pudding.
Well, that's the thing, and I have, like, my that guy Tim challenges me all the time, but he goes, I can't believe how far to the toe you'll go with this. And I will go where the evidence takes me. And I'm fairly discerning. I mean, you guys have your own things. I have ideas on what I think something, but the truth is you can't believe your own bullshit. And that's something I try not to swallow too much, is like,
easiest person to fool is yourself.
Exactly. So you gotta,
Richard Feynman.
You gotta be able to look at all the evidence. I mean, this is why I'm sitting there going, damn it, Jim.
Damn it, Jim.
Exactly. Damn it, Jim.
They're all dead.
Are you right about this cycle stuff? Or are they just seeing repeated destructions every now and then and thinking that they're cyclical? But how would they survive to write the story? What am I really looking at here? Did the Saturn myth even really occur? But they worshipped it a lot. I mean, we know that happened, right? And then so I'm sitting here, because those are two contradictory areas in my head, because there's part of me that can understand the cyclical nature, but at the same time, are we reading into that, or are we reading into the other thing, or are they even mutually exclusive? Or is Robert Schlock right? You know what I mean? Like, you have to sort of, like, is it Randall Carson right? Like, type of thing. Are you in this, you know what I mean? You have to, but it's okay to not know everything. The only thing we can
no one can know everything.
Well, you have to start in the here and now and work backwards. And of course, as soon as you start getting into the idea of flamenco and that New Earth girl and the obfuscations of history, and of course what we just talked about earlier, I'm questioning. Right. You got to question so many things. I mean, you're like, okay, the last 200 years of history, is that correct?
Have you seen that Max Egan stuff? He's a very interesting character, and I appreciate the quality of what he produces. But the thing that's been bubbling recently is this potential obfuscation of about 1,000 years of history, and it's bubbling up from a lot of different angles. That's what I meant
by flamenco.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
You can you can actually read his books, but if you haven't done it, you can go to the New Earth series. She has the one after the Atlantis survivors wake up. It's a 30-part series, but just watch like the first 7 sometime, and you're going to be like, what the frack? Because you're really looking at such, there she is there. And she has this thing called, if you scroll down, it's one of the things when the Atlantis survivors play up. Yeah, there, in Hyperbia, that one. You
Wait, I'm not seeing it.
Go back.
Oh,
you fucked it up.
Okay.
You fucked it
Sorry.
up.
That's
Ancient
usual.
Vehicle Tracks
As
is another
usual.
beautiful one there.
It's the story of my life.
Scroll down a bit more.
Go ahead.
There it is. See, when the survivors of Atlantis and Hyperbia wake up, part 1 of like 30 or something.
Okay.
And she has wonderful little tales and stuff, and and she goes through all the evidence that seems to say that there was something before, and that history has been changed. And she shows you proof of that, or what you can take as proof or disproof or whatever.
I just have to look at that.
No, feel free. I have no idea where this comes from.
Ayahuasca?
I don't know.
Is that what she's saying? What is this?
I'm not even sure if she's a hippie or not, but she's Russian. She has.
It looks
cool
like
voice.
that word, right?
But she has this wonderful images
Great
that
painting.
she.
Love
Yeah,
the painting,
exactly. Like the way that they go over it. But speaking of that, that headdress to me, I'm like, yeah, that's a Mars Earth connection right there, or a Venus Earth connection.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she has this wonderful tale, and she keeps showing you pieces of evidence over and over again. But one of them is flamenco, and they talk specifically about the 1,000 years of history that Jim brought up.
Mm-hmm.
And which is also the same thing Newton brought up. Newton said that the Greeks were sent back in time 1,000 years, and the Romans 700 or something.
Mm-hmm.
They basically.
Yeah, I mean, this is Max Egan, very, very interesting.
Yeah, well, who is this guy? Because I've never heard of him compared to this Russian flamenco.
Yeah, no, here, I think I popped. I'm going to check your. So I popped something into.
But I definitely recommend it. And those ancient vehicle tracks I also thought was very fascinating, because you could see the axle and the independent suspension of the vehicle that they were driving, and you wonder how they did that. And of course someone literally sent me a link and said, no, look it up, man. These were just plow furrows. And I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? I mean, number one, there's not even footprints in front of them. Like, nothing pulled these vehicles. How are they? I'm willing to accept that it's modern and the rock just froze recently. I'm okay with that. I don't know how this. Maybe it was volcanic dirt that turned into stone. I don't know. But I mean, I'm not necessarily willing to. But of course, they say that the stone is so many millions of years old. Therefore, and of course, this is another problem with radioactive dating. When yada yada yada, right? So. Right. We don't even know if that's true anymore. Like I said, geology was a descriptive science, and when they got that thing with atomic clocks and the radioactive decay, and they started seizing on that as a way to turn their descriptive science into a real science, but that just threw everything into millions of years as the answer. I mean, I don't know what it solved. Did it even solve anything?
Millions of years separates us from the question. It's like you see how insignificant you are compared to what we know is true, and it's like to me it's a
comforting warm blanket.
It's a mechanism. It's just to keep inquiry from happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the one that's just really, really loud that Jim brings up is this variation in distances to stars, and the closest stars, by the way, the 5 times difference. It's
What are you trying to tell me, that Proxima Centauri is 5 times closer than we think it is?
I don't know, Jim. Can you cover that one for me?
We were talking about parallax the other day, so I understand.
Yeah. The parallax is definitely wrong, but
the redshift must be wrong. Parallax cannot be wrong. It's geometry.
Right. But
it can be really inaccurate if you're down on
it probably was,
tight
which
angle.
is why it wasn't used. But today, when we have the Hubble Space Telescope, not so much. I'm just saying, we can be really picky now. Go on, Jim. I'm sorry.
There's almost like no way to confirm things, even if the parallax distances we can't trust. The redshift as a function of distance we can't trust.
Well, we could obviously trust parallax in the sense that, I mean, if you do the math and we're right on the math, we're going to have a margin of error. I mean, we know where it's not going to be completely wrong. I mean, but if those margins are outside of the redshift, then yeah, we have a problem. And I assume that's what you're talking about.
Well, with parallax, that is simple trigonometry, but it depends crucially on the path of light being straight in space. In other words, there's no plasma bending of light.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, the material. You're also assuming a homogeneous material in between.
Now, see, the mainstream throws that out because they have the idea of gravitational bending of light.
Right.
But as long as they know that there's no gravitational mass between us and the closest stars, they know that there's no issue and they can trust the parallax. But where you know it's wrong is when two different teams of astronomers use different
machines. Different data sets?
Different methods, like direct parallax, which is you look at a star, move over in Earth's orbit, 6 months later, you take another beat on a star.
Right.
That's one way. And the other way is to look beyond the objects, wait 6 months, and then see what background stars you've moved beyond.
Gotcha. Yeah, I assume that they were both the same, but I understand the difference. Okay.
Yeah. So what happens then is if there's bending of light around the star that you're looking at, then not even on the way there, but around that star, those two measurements are going to be off. And that's what the mainstream keeps seeing. And they argue with each other. Like the big one was the Pleiades distance problem. And they finally resolved that to their own satisfaction. Basically, they just had more teams do more measurements and
took an average.
By consensus.
Yeah.
That's what they got.
97% of scientists agree.
Right, but the truth is, if there's bending of light on the way to even the closest stars, that's not something that should happen in the mainstream, but that's something that should happen if plasma bends light.
Exactly, because basically the clouds around us should have a very minor effect, and of course, using those fine tolerances, it will be noticeable. It's not so noticeable, but just like that tube that we are attached to, that in the local thing that you keep showing, or that I associate with you now, the picture of us and Sirius and Antares and all that shit.
Right.
Local interstellar cloud, that will change depending on where. Even though we're looking right through it, we're seeing different densities of plasma, and which is what it should be, because there's rings. This is no different than or general rings, what I mean, and tails and bubbles and everything else. So,
but the key observation there was, if you realize which way a bending of light should affect the direct parallax compared to the relative parallax, and that's what
if you could figure out the incident of refraction, basically.
Right. Yeah, basically you can predict which one should be shorter than the other, and that's what they're seeing. So, in other words, they are seeing the effects of bending of light by plasma, and they see it right where we in the EU view, where we would want to put plasma because of these filaments. Right. That's where they're seeing that bending. So that's perfect.
Almost like a proof. I mean, this is actually very interesting. I've never thought about this, but that is actually another evidence of.
That's the only way. That's what I was arguing, even in the forums for a long time. Is that's the only way. If you have a dark mode filament, there's no way to see it based on all the other. You're not going to get, if you have charge flowing along in a minimum energy configuration, it's not going to spiral around the background magnetic field. You're not going to get synchrotron radiation.
No, you're not going to. I mean, that's just a load. That's creating a load. You don't want to do that. You want to keep it as minimum as possible. Yeah.
The only way to see a minimum energy configuration is to look for those shells of plasma, which you can't see directly, but they're going to cause the bending of light. So what these parallax errors, that could be a whole line of research for someone in the EU, is just map out where relative parallax errors are different than direct parallax, and you're mapping out charge density in space without even without even
Right.
knowing it.
And
Yeah,
they are actually noticing these things happening in the heliopause, where we're getting fine enough instrumentation to see ripples and voltage gradients that are occurring in the medium, like in the plasma medium between our electric field, the sun's electric field, I guess, and the electric field of the galaxy, and the relationship, or the relationship between the two, how energy must transfer across this medium to get to the sun. I mean, we know it, the EU, this is how it works, right? I mean, this is completing a circuit. But when it's doing that, it's going through these very, I would say, large and loose double layers. And in so doing, they must have different densities, some more than others. There will be just like as if you looked through water and looked at the bottom of the pool, and you see how there's ripples everywhere and how there's like connections and they disappear. I mean, I know it's optical, but for lack of a better term, it would kind of look like that, doing its thing between the two as plasma moves, and like a plasma ball, you know what I mean? Like a, you know, but obviously not nearly enough to create any visible light, but just enough so that it's starting to be slightly a load, just slightly, just you know, so we can start noticing that like something zips along a little faster, and you're like, hey, did I notice a little piece of energy come from that? You know, because there should be. Obviously, the sun's main energy load is right around the sun, not, you know, but the amount of energy getting to that little tiny surface being the solar surface. I mean, I say little tiny, but it's the biggest thing in our solar system, compared to the heliopause, which is out past the orbit of Pluto, you know, 80 or so astronomical units away in all directions, or more or less. Then with an X number of astronomical units, let's say, I'll pick a number, 10, between there and the extragalactic plasma, so to speak. Well, there's that little 10 AU barrier around us. They're starting to see energy doing shit in there, is basically what I'm saying. Like basically like sprites. You know, like if you think it was hard to detect a sprite, imagine detecting one of the sun sprites. You know what I mean? You know, like trying to figure out what's going on there, and putting this into context. This is her work, by the way. Some of these, this is wonderful. These are, you get to see this is one of her wonderful proofs where she goes, here's an aqueduct in the middle of Spain.
It's Mexico.
Here's an aqueduct in the middle of Spain, and then she goes, here's an aqueduct.
I've seen those ones in Spain too, yeah.
And
they look
exactly the same.
Exactly.
They look exactly the same. Did you think that a bunch of conquistadors were coming down, killing a whole whack of people who don't believe in the moth? And by the way, we're going to teach you high-tech engineering to build these for us. Thank you very much. You know, like that's, it's almost ludicrous, some of the stories that we've been fed when you think about them logically. And especially when you go back and look at old maps. You know?
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that makes me challenge your thing, Jim. There's the Bimini Road right there. We were talking about that. In one of the things that off the coast of Bimini. This giant dock that's underwater. Look at the stones.
Right.
Romanesque, if nothing else. Very large. But anyway, that's one of the things I have an issue with, Jim, is that if there's cyclical nature, why are we so inspired by this wonderful, these obviously like the electrical phenomenon, like the fleur de lis, which is basically like a sprite when I think about it now. Oh my God. The fleur de lis is a sprite. I'm an idiot. All my life, I never noticed that. Okay, so come on, French, the fleur de lis. Come on, guys. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, you're asking the difference.
That's
between
Beethoven, right?
Shut up.
like cyclical versus catastrophic changes, or
well, I think that it's possible to have both. To be perfectly honest, but I'm just wondering. Because I mean, I just don't see them at the moment mutually exclusive. But one of the things that seems to lend credence was the holiness of the just like urns everywhere, and the structure of that's a picture of a in Brazil. That's a statue prior to being torn down. You look at them all. This is in Brazil. These are Roman statues. they would never have let this be built. Like conquistadors, I mean. See? Look, it even says Romano on it. Now that's all gone. Those pictures don't exist I mean, you could find the pictures like that, but that right there was pretty damning. And of course, when they found the Spanish galleon or the Roman galleons off the coast of Brazil, and do you know why they were not declared, even though they had all the artifacts were declared to be very similar to Roman, but they were never really announced because anything that's Roman, Italy tries to seize. And they wanted to keep.
Well, it doesn't fit the narrative. I mean, the narrative blows the narrative out of the water.
Of course, it blows it. Look at what they're talking about here. Anyway, but this is where this whole ancient history link that we're having here, compared to the cyclical nature, because I can't deny that I've heard. I mean, I played Shadowrun for fuck's sakes, which is a role-playing game, and it's based on magic returning to the world. And you play in 2075, and so it's high tech, but there's magic and shit.
Seems to be happening right now.
I know, eh? But one of the things that in it is that they call it the sixth world. They say in 2012, December 23rd, 2012, the sixth world occurred, where it was born from the fifth world, which was reborn from the fourth world of the third world. And so obviously, I have an affinity with what you're saying. I'm not dismissing it. I love the Graham Hancock stuff that I did, and obviously this work here that she's referring to, which she said when these people woke up and went and tried to inform the world, which is what Robert Hawthorne was talking about. I'm comfortable with it, and I'm comfortable with the idea of the worldwide culture. What I'm concerned with is. Maybe, and this is very interesting, maybe they are related. And what I mean by that is that in Jeannot Cook's work, he describes the fact that a giant comet would come through the system and then disappear again, and every 26 million years we get this destruction. Now, he's using conventional chronology, so I'm with the 26 million years, but that could be a much shorter time frame in the electric universe point of view with the change of radioactive dates, but just saying it that way for lack of a better term. So they keep coming and going, and eventually it came and settled down here, and that became Saturn. That's his general idea and we describe this body and or system coming in as the Venus figurines or the Aleutian hand axe, and so these cycles of destruction were occurring. Because it would come and go and would mess up the Earth. And of course, it kept coming sooner and sooner as it got affected by the gravity of the sun and, of course, other planets and so forth. So this was basically saying that because he was showing examples of the changing of the shape of the Venus figurine over time. For example, there's the original one, which is the fat lady with no feet. But then if you notice, her neck gets longer and her head starts bobbing forward, and then eventually she becomes like a bird-like symbol. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And this is where it kept coming and going in and out of our heliopause into around the sun. So it was a planet basically, which might explain why we have these ideas that there's other planets orbiting the sun that we don't even see, which I'm comfortable with. There's some evidence for that, to be perfectly honest. But and then this amazing little event occurred where we got sort of attached to this thing, and we were drawn around. Our orbit was shifted, all that kind of thing. And then these days passed us again because of the clash of the Titans and so forth, and we are. Because that was apparently a period where we were very peaceful, the golden age, so to speak, 2,800 years or so, where where nothing incredibly bad happened. We were well protected inside of the coma of this other body. So I keep wondering, stuff like this, for example, can't not but make you wonder, like, who the hell did that? And of course, she's showing evidence of machining and stuff like that. So I'm seeing the change in gravity in real time. Like there's a technology that existed, and then maybe the antediluvian great flood occurred, and here we are without that anymore. There's those lintels we were talking about, couplers. But, of course, they're all over the world. Are they, just to prevent earthquakes? Were they there because these walls had to be electrically connected? Stuff like that. I'm very interested in how this relates. And obviously I'm willing to hear evidence of both sides, but I would like to think that somehow it is able to be reconciled together, because there seems to be enough evidence for in description of both cycles and of catastrophe.
Right. What's funny, if we just learn from nature, imagine like
that's what science was supposed to be, by the way.
Right. But imagine you're this life form that lives. A typical lifespan is a matter of minutes, so that you go through many generations in a day. And you're talking about like just trees on Earth. You could see how some of your ancestors would paint this picture of these long-term cycles where trees develop leaves in the spring and then they get bigger.
Which is obviously true.
Right. But then someone else comes along and says, no, we had this 2-day period where there was frost and leaves fell. You have these full green trees, and then the next day you have barren trees. That's catastrophic change. And if you weren't around long enough, you would argue who's right. Were there
did that even
catastrophic
happen?
changes?